A lot of people will say, well, hey, you know what? We're growing too fast. We got to have somebody in this position. We're just going to hire one or two people that don't buy into the culture. Well, if you do not have people that buy into the culture, that buy into the goal, that buy into the work ethic that's required to achieve your goals, you're going to fail. End of story. The culture will collapse and you will ultimately fail.
Welcome to the People Powered Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things workplace culture. Let's help you reinfuse your workplace with that happiness factor, a show that gives you the expert insight to attract and keep happy, high-performing employees. I'm your host, Lorianne Duguay, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. Hello and welcome to another episode of the People Powered Podcast. This week we are continuing with our Culture's Secret Sauce series, where we are showcasing companies who, when it comes to creating a workplace culture where people feel seen, heard, and valued, they've clearly understood the assignment. We are welcoming the founder and CEO of the Garrett Companies, Eric Garrett. Welcome, Eric.
Thanks for having me.
So before we deep dive into some of the wonderful things and folks, stay tuned. This company is doing some very big things for their employees, as well as understand the value and importance of those everyday things in terms of creating and fostering that highly engaging workplace environment. So stay tuned. But before we get into that, would you mind sharing with our audience a bit more about how Eric got to doing what Eric does today, as well as a bit of inside scoop on what your company is all about?
Sure. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I don't want to bore everybody, but I started in the real estate development business, roughly 24 years ago now. And to date, the Garrett Companies is a fully vertically integrated multifamily development, construction, and management company. We also have grown that company outside of those business lines and have several related companies that feed into the Garrett Companies. So at the end of the day, we develop, build, and own multifamily real estate around the country. We've been on a pretty big hiring tear lately. So we are at a point where we're hiring roughly 100 people this year, and that'll duplicate what we did last year. We've actually already hired 50 or 60 this year, so we're on pace to hit our goals. But it's been a fun business to be in. It's incredibly frustrating. It's an industry that has massive turnover, typically upwards of 20, 30, and I've seen even 40% turnover per year for some of our peer companies. So it's a very aggressive industry, and it can be very challenging.
I suspect that the aggressive nature of the industry makes it that much more important to create a workplace environment that attracts people to your.
No, absolutely. And so the Garrett Companies so I started in the business I started in the banking business, went to brokerage, from brokerage, went back and went into the development business and worked for a company and helped grow his platform here in Indianapolis. From that, I created another company called Watermark Residential that I eventually sold to my partners, and then created the Garrett Company. So I've kind of had I've had a good learning lesson along the way at all the different stops of seeing how individual companies have treated workplace culture and what was important to them and how it worked for them or what didn't work for them. All that to say that at the end of the day, I think that yes, when I rolled out and created the Garrett Companies, the number one goal was to create a place where not only were the employees happy to come to the office, but I was happy to come to the office. And that's a very tough balance to strike. So
Absolutely. So how many employees total?
A little over 300 in just the core companies. That's not including other, management and some of our other related companies. So.
Okay. Well, so now that we've got an idea of kind of the context that led you to the Garrett Companies, as well as better idea of the size of Garrett Companies, I want us to start with the big things. I'm hoping we start by sharing some of those incredible initiatives that you shared during our Fit Check call that your company does for their employees. And then let's kind of segue into the everyday things that you believe enable you to create that highly engaging work environment. So let's start with some of the big things. What are some of the big initiatives that you've got to reward or appreciate your team members?
Sure. Some of the big items, just big ticket items. So we do a company ski trip every year. It's to Telluride, Colorado, one of my favorite places. We invite the entire company from every position up, and not everybody goes, but because it's a week-long event and it's 100% paid for, and I think it's a pretty special time. I think the people that go feel like it's a pretty special time. It's interesting when you have 200 plus team members on a mountain, all wearing a Garrett hockey jersey, skiing around the mountain, and living in houses with other people that you're working with, and just that camaraderie and that team bond that's created. That's been a big initiative. We've done that from year one, and we're going to continue to do that as long as I'm alive. It's been a lot of people have asked me, like, why in the world would you commit that type of a resource to a ski trip? Because it's pretty expensive, obviously. At the end of the day, completely invaluable. I can't put a price tag on it. It is the number one team bonding event that we do. You learn the relationships that are created, the water cooler talk, if you could, that's created from those meetings, from that event, that go in through the year, that spur conversation throughout the work year and the work week later, have just changed the dynamic of the entire company. So very important piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely. And that is absolutely incredible. You touched on the high competitive. I want to add kind of a fun fact here, and just the high turnover within your industry. Can you share with our audience what the Garrett Companies turnover looks like?
I just checked it. We're at 5.9%, and about 2% of that is voluntary.
Wow.
So
that is one impressive.
Well, look, it is. That's probably the biggest benchmark that I use in at least in my world, to say, make sure we're doing things right. If I had told you that we were 10 or 20%, we'd still be below industry average, but that definitely wouldn't hit the goals that I have. If you're losing 10% of your workforce a year, that is that's such a troubling stat. I mean, I don't know how you would function just in that repetitive environment of training and hiring and training and hiring, exactly, and losing that type of staff level. It's just not something I would want to be involved in. So,
and it is, unfortunately, it is the reality, I would say, of 80% of companies out there. And they are in that constant recruitment loop. They're constantly having to invest their resources in managing in the interim, in managing even just the stress that it's imposing on the rest of the people who stay behind, who haven't left, as well as having to recruit and train. And it's this constant cycle.
Trust me. So from my own little anecdotal story here, I'll tell you that we have a restaurant group as well. The restaurant company is related to our real estate development. We're trying to add mixed use to a lot of our apartment communities, so we'll have one of our restaurant concepts there that provides a great convenience to our residents. And the restaurant business is difficult. I'll just flat out tell you, it's nothing like what I had experienced before, and we've been in it now for 4 or 5 years. And originally that turnover rate was much greater in the restaurant business. And I will tell you that structurally, it's hard. I mean, it's not like you can go off and pay a line cook $40 an hour just because you like them, right? There's a amount of money that you can pay. But I think the key to turning that over and to getting the restaurant business back in line with the turnover of the rest of the company was just incorporating those workers into the rest of the company. So you're no longer, you're Garrett Restaurants, but you're Garrett, and we're all together. You're all coming to the ski trip. We're all doing this. It's not like just because you work at the restaurant company, you can't go. So now, and for a while there, we were siloed, and I think that's what created that problem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Okay, I had us digressing, but it's just, I think it was important to talk about your impressively low turnover rate when it comes to the industry kind of standards, more or less, and what we're seeing elsewhere. It's just it validates that people clearly want to work for the Garrett Companies because they feel seen, and you said it, to include the restaurants into that ski trip, so that there was no feeling of we're an afterthought. There's no feeling of, well, they do all these wonderful things, but only for certain divisions or only for certain departments, right? So definitely making sure that whatever initiatives you're putting out there, folks, that you are being fully inclusive of everyone within that company. Now let's go into another interesting big ticket, if you will, initiative that you do for your employees, notably for the employees who've been around for 10 years or more.
Right. So we pay for the college education of our employees that stay with us for 10 years or more. So For their children, yes. So the original initiative was, yeah, we stay with us for 10 years. We're going to put your child through school, and obviously there are caps to that, but I mean roughly we're talking about well over $100,000 per employee that they can use towards really anything from room and board, books, tuition, you name it. And we have quite a few members that are taking advantage of that program, and we are really, once again, it's that yeah, you can put a number to this one. And was it big and lofty? Sure. As a matter of fact, I think, well, at the time we implemented it, we were the only we're the only company that we could find in America that was doing it. The benefit far outweighs the cost. I mean, I don't even think about the numbers anymore. We've already allocated those dollars. We know where it's going to go. We're managing that, and I can guarantee you the output of the consistency of the workforce being happy and engaged far outweighs the cost of the program.
Let's talk about some of those benefits that you've seen in terms of just benefits of these types of initiatives on the overall morale, on the overall satisfaction and engagement.
Yeah, look, well, I'm sure we'll talk about this in a little bit, but how we go about finding people, because I think that's probably the big piece of the whole culture aspect, right? But the people that we find are typically driven. They buy into our concept of what we're trying to do already. When you share, the bounty, so to speak, or everybody feels like they are engaged and they feel like they're cared about, and they're not just a number. That makes a huge impact. And, once again, I've seen other companies. I've watched how it looks in a big bank organization, for example, and people walk in, they're sad, they sit down at their cubicle, they put their their dish in the refrigerator, they get down and they do their TPS report for the 4,000th time. The feeling when you walk into the Garrett Companies, it's artificially lively anyway because we have music going, we're having a good time. But there are true friendships there. People are walking in, they're seeing friends that they want to see every day. They're seeing people and coworkers that they have something in common with, that they all share the same vision and values, and they're working towards a common goal. And by providing things like this, well, it just keeps that culture and that attitude lively.
Absolutely. You just said something that for me is game changing when it comes to a company getting their people plugged into something bigger than themselves. So you talked about they all share the same vision and values. How do you go about transmitting that and ensuring that it is at the forefront of all they do on a daily basis?
Hiring.
Well, then we needed to get into that. So let's get into that.
Yeah. So,
you find your people.
I'll bypass how we find the plethora of people that come in. I mean, we do have a fully staffed team internally, and our HR staff, and our, I hate to call it a headhunting staff, but a headhunting staff internally that's going out and trying to find and recruit good talent. But and so we have a lot of resumes that come in for that. But at the end of the day, and we can talk about the system of how we go about interviewing, but I'll tell you what we're looking for, because I think it's important. I think, for example, we say we hire for culture. And I think if I were just giving you a platitude, I'd say we hire for culture, just like everybody else says. But what does that really mean? Well, the secret is simple, but most people either they don't understand it or they're not looking for it. And the key is that people, I put this in a nice way, average workers do not like high achieving people that are striving for excellence and greatness. People that are excellent and great do not get along well with people who are average or below. So the key is having an overwhelming number of people that fall into that category of striving for excellence and greatness. And I can tell you that we will not hire somebody that we do not feel very comfortable with coming in, that they already feel that way, and that they will strive for our common goal. And, a lot of people will say, well, hey, you know what? We're growing too fast. We got to have somebody in this position. We're just going to hire one or two people that don't buy into the culture. Well, if you do not have people that buy into the culture, that buy into the goal, that buy into the work ethic that's required to achieve your goals, you're going to fail. End of story. The culture will collapse and you will ultimately fail. And that's why I tell people all the time, don't hire. Life's too short. Do not hire the person that doesn't fit the mold you're looking for. I don't care how fast you're trying to grow. Don't grow that fast. I'd rather not grow. I'd pull revenues down before I allowed us to grow out of our culture. because I would understand that cultural shift, you may be able to ride the tide and be okay for a year or two. But once the cultural shift happens and you start seeing it go down the hill, there's very little chance you're going to bring it back without eliminating all your staff, which causes a whole other side effect. So how do we do it? Well, we hire for that cultural piece. We hire for that high achiever, and we won't accept anything else. And honestly, I mentioned that 3% of our turnover is non-voluntary. Well, those are the people that, they had a good game but did not perform to the level of expectations. And it sounds harsh because we're talking about culture and everybody being lively and happy and everything else. But at the end of the day, we've assembled a team that will accept nothing but greatness. And you can't allow the team, and this is about me, it's much bigger than me at this point. You can't allow the team to be brought down by somebody who's not on board and not striving for the same goals and doesn't have the same goal in mind. So.
Okay, so it sounds like you've got a profile. You're very clear on the profile of who is a fit. What are some of the attributes that you look for based on during your hiring practices? What are some of those very specific ways that you're able to hone in on whether or not they are a fit?
Sure. Well, so the hiring process itself, if they have at least the ability to function and their resume shows they can do it and they have a good phone interview and we bring them in for the interview process, the hiring manager typically talks to them first. If that person makes it past the hiring manager, they go to 3 other levels of interviews. And each of those 3 will be from somebody that's completely outside of the work that they will be doing at the company. So if it's a construction guy, he's probably going to be interviewed by somebody in, who knows, accounting, development, and restaurants. Doesn't really matter. We just find somebody that's from a different aspect of the company, and their goal is to find out, really, do they feel like they're a fit? Just culture. Do they feel like they're a fit just from a personality standpoint? Mm-hmm. Are they going to be prima donnas? Are they going to be angry all the time? You name it. So now, what are they also looking for? Well, there are some telltale signs. I mean, we do happen to have a high number of people that come from a very competitive sports background.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's the only thing we're looking for, but I'm just saying that there happens to be it seems somewhat of at least a direct correlation, if not causation, that when you have somebody who has gone through life at a high level of athletics, they typically understand teamwork. They typically understand striving for a goal and how the parts and pieces come together in order to achieve a goal. But along those lines, it doesn't have to be somebody who's played football at Division I or, in the NFL. We have some of those, but somebody that is, structurally, you can tell that they, whether they work out or they are competitive golfers or there's this competitive edge that they show.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that's the piece that we're looking for, really. Now, let's say their work experience is average. They generally know what they're supposed to do, but we know that they're high achievers in everything else they do. I'll take that all day long. And I can tell you that we've had plenty of people that have come in with, Ivy League backgrounds with very good Rolodex that I have turned down for that very reason. They were not going to bring the competitive edge that we needed. And I'd rather take somebody who has the competitive edge that I have to train because I know that they'll be focused and I know what they'll be working on. So
you're saying technical doesn't trump suitability. You're hiring for suitability, for openness
always.
To acquire. Absolutely. I like targeting that competitive edge because there are people who are especially if it is a highly competitive industry, there are people who are they can be the most technical, astute person, but when it comes to competition, it totally demotivates them. So you really have kind of that unique profile of someone that will translate success within your industry.
Yeah, and absolutely. And look, as a company, our goal is to compete and win. That's what we're trying to do. And what does winning mean? Well, we talk about that all the time. I actually spent an hour talking about it at our year-end meeting this year. The idea of winning for us is delivering the absolute highest risk-adjusted return for our shareholders than any other company in America. And if we do that, everything else follows suit. To do that, you have to be striving for excellence. To do that, you have to be doing the very little things that most companies don't want to do. And you have to be in the weeds and you have to be in the details and you have to do all these things. Or if you don't, well, you can never hit that goal. So there's a very clear goal. I've realized that people that have that competitive edge, They want a very clear focus, right? I think everybody does, but so very much so when, if you're going to tell somebody you want them to go out and win, you better define winning, because
Absolutely.
if they don't know what the definition of that is, then, well, you don't know
Show
what they're
them the
shooting for.
goalpost. They need to know the goalpost, right? They
That's
need
right.
to know what it is they're going after. And so, what are some of the ways that you remind people of the importance of that attribute specifically, and how are you fueling it within your practices once they're fully indoctrinated into the organization?
Well, it's something that I think is brought up every single day, especially with my executive team. I can tell you that every decision we make as a group, every discussion we have, all feeds around this concept of, is this going to make us the most profitable, most risk, give our shareholders the most risk adjusted return in the market, period. That's what we're focusing on. And that is brought up ad nauseum. I mean, we talk about it all the time. So that is not something that's hidden. I think our corporate culture is such that, you talk about the little things that we do. I mean, yeah, we're getting ready to compete in the in the corporate Olympics in Indianapolis, and we're flying in people from all of our markets to make sure we're the most competitive group out there. I mean, we're whatever, if we got somebody that's very good at, I'm trying to think of one of the events, pickleball, for example, we're going to bring in our best pickleball players to play in that event for us. And everybody knows that, and that's kind of the fun of being here. We're always striving to one up what we've done, and we're a culture that people are rewarded for bringing ideas of how to get better. When we bring somebody new on, the first thing we say to them is, first thing we say to them, here's your expectation. We want you to strive, we want you to have fun, but here's what the expectations of the job are. But also, we didn't hire you because, we hired you because we liked you, but we also hired you because you come from a different background. So tell us what it is that you've learned throughout your years of doing this that makes us better.
Absolutely.
Now, flat out tell them, look, some of these things we may implement. If we don't implement it, don't take offense to it. We have a reason for not doing it. We can discuss it, but we want to hear some ideas. Tell us how to get better. You wouldn't believe, just by having that conversation with every new person that walks in,
Amazing.
That's come from a different entity, how much information we have to work off of what that our competitors are doing or not doing, or what we could be doing better. Just little small incremental changes every single day. That's just the culture we live.
It's amazing. I like that it's a one question. This is something, listeners, that you could implement today. Adding that question, that conversation, normalizing just this, providing constructive feedback, and then showing them what it might look like, giving them ideas of what you've heard in the past and how you were actually able to continuously improve because of that being brought to your attention. I call it my data nuggets of wisdom. That's like a gold mine right there, to add that right at the onset. But it also speaks volumes in terms of, here's what you can expect. We not only normalize feedback, we expect it on both sides. So let's have those conversations. Let's make sure that we are gathering that valuable information. I want to ask, I've been kind of reflecting here on this profile of that competitive edge. How do you make, just because I'm a highly competitive person, depending on the certain situations, sometimes I can be a bit of a almost to a bad quality in terms of playing certain games where I get really frustrated. So how do you make sure you're not hiring someone who's a poor loser, or who doesn't have that crazy, almost to a point of putting other people down, competitive edge?
Well,
there's a fine line there.
Yeah, there is, and I'm just as competitive as well. If I lose a game in Monopoly, I'm pretty upset. I can tell you that we have a in our ski trip, we also do a company euchre tournament. And if you don't know what euchre is, it's a card game. It's an Indiana, it's kind of an Indiana-based game, but some people play it outside of the state. But anyway, we implement this. We have a huge tournament. We pair up. It's a pretty big deal, and it happens all week long. And there's a winner that's crowned. And yeah, there are some people that are pretty darn upset when they get bounced from the
one game that we play weekly. And that's where I see my negative behavior creep up.
Trust me, it's a frustrating game, especially if you're getting bad cards, and they're trying to, or your partner's making bad decisions. It's a tough game. But no, we have absolutely seen that side of it as well. But so far, and I'm not quite sure what it is. We haven't had anybody that's gone completely. Well, we may have had somebody that's gone almost off the edge that we is no longer with us, but
You
for
have
the
to manage.
most part, we haven't had that level of intensity geared towards our coworkers. So
Good,
that's
good.
been good.
And so I guess my listeners know that I'm also like a conflict resolution practitioner. So I do mediation and stuff like that. And I deal a lot with companies and helping them manage conflict and manage those more courageous conversations. I'm wondering if that competitive edge has led to maybe just them being confident in having those more courageous conversations generally.
Well, I can tell you that one of the biggest things we preach every single day is I don't care who you're talking. If you're talking to me or anybody else in the organization, be upfront, say what you mean what you say, and be fearless in what you say. No one's going to get in trouble. We're not looking for a "I gotcha" kind of thing. We're not looking for a way to pin blame on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you, this business, and the reason this business has such a high turnover rate and why it's so competitive and so tough is because there are a lot of decisions being made. I mean, think about it this way. We have 27 active projects right now.
Okay.
Each one of these 27 projects are roughly $100 million projects. So you've got 27 separate $100 million assets being built at any given time. There are thousands, and literally thousands of people that are going to have a hand in each one of these projects, all the way from the subcontractors to the city to you name it. There are a lot of things that are outside of your control. The natural tendency in most organizations, in this business anyway, is to fly under the radar, try to get the project as close to completion as you can without bringing up any of the problems that are happening. And then at the very end, say, oh, by the way, we just lost $3 million in construction and we had this happen and that happen. And, then I'm out of here. They part ways. That's the very, very common. They'll do one or two projects and then they leave an organization and then they go to another organization. They do the same thing. And this keeps happening. And at first I thought, well, that's just something that's wrong with the employee themselves. But then I realized that I think most people or most groups are looking at this in the entirely wrong way. They're looking at it as, hey, I'm looking for a problem, and then I'm looking for somebody to blame for that problem, and I'm going to take it out on that person for having that problem, and that's why they hide. That's why the employee's hiding, right? We've taken the tact of, well, look, you have a problem, I have a problem, we all have a problem. Let's all work together to fix it. It's very collaborative type. It's more of a collaborative type environment. Most of our new guys really struggle with, especially on the construction side. They still have that tendency to kind of hide
the red flag.
You gotta probe a little bit, and you got to really find out what's going on, and then you can help them explain to them. Look, I know you've known about this for a while. It's okay. Here's how we're going to fix this together, and it's not your fault. It's all of our faults. It's all of our problems. And I try to tell people all the time, we have a cost overrun. We have a problem in our scope gap or something like that. It's my problem. I'll take the blame for it. I don't care.
Ownership. Yeah. It's collective accountability.
Another thing that you see is, you have a development company, you have a construction company. They're always at odds, or the management company, bring them in. The construction company, hey, why are you late? Well, the company didn't do X, Y, and Z. The development company, hey, why isn't this working out the way you said it would? Oh, because construction did this. We've completely eliminated that, which is in our industry is a big thing. So the way we eliminate it is make it very simple. Yeah, profits come in from development. Yes, profits come in from construction. Yes, profits come in from management. But a profit or a loss to management benefits the whole. Same with construction, same with development. So we're all on the same team. If we lose $1 in development, it's $1 the entire company lost. So it hurts all of us, not just the development company. And a lot of people silo those entities so well that they're all fighting with each other in order to make sure they preserve that profit in each of these entities. And I've just said, it's all one place. It's all going to one place. So
this notion again on collective results, on collective interests, rather than having being systemically set up so that you're actually fueling that siloed mentality, but also alongside that siloed mentality is that focus on individual interests as opposed to the collective, right?
Correct.
Not sure if you're familiar with Patrick Lencioni, but he that's one of his kind of those 5 behaviors of a high performing team. That's one of them right there. That notion of focusing. It's at the very top of the pyramid. I always have my little handy dandy little pyramid, and there's those 5 kind of behaviors that fuel high performance. And at the very top is the notion of focused on and ensuring that your team members are focused on the collective results and that they're collectively holding each other accountable and they're holding each other to whatever commitments they've made towards the achievement, and then kind of they've created the level of trust required to be able to call each other out if they're not delivering on what they've committed to and hold each other accountable.
No, it's just like exactly what I was going back to saying earlier. High achievers are not big fans of average workers. It's just the way it is, and those people will call them out, and it's not always fun to be around. So sometimes it's kind of like, ugh. But it's part of it. And when we walk into a meeting, no one's going to personally attack anybody. I can tell you that. I mean, I've had a couple of instances where somebody has made a comment that was almost a personal attack because they were so upset with that person, and I just had to pull them aside and say, listen, you can say what you want to somebody within reason, but you're not going to personally attack them in front of me. That's just not how we work as a team here.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to, if you've got a issue, let's bring it up. Let's talk about it. There's probably not just one person's fault. We all need to collectively decide how we're going to deal with it moving forward, whether it's a new policy and procedure or whether it was just something we missed somewhere. So anyway, the transparency of conversations throughout the company has probably been the most impressive part of all of this as we put it all together. I don't know that I didn't see that coming. I knew that what we were trying to achieve, and we had that focus, but definitely didn't see that coming. It's been really refreshing. So
amazing. So what are some of the other everyday things, the little, easy to implement everyday things that you feel make a difference in terms of the culture that you're striving to maintain and create?
Oh, there are so many things we could go on for days, I think, but there's little things. And we just had Father's Day in our offices. The office managers took it upon themselves to put together a station for all of the employees to make Father's Day gifts. And we have stacks of Hallmark cards, and they go in, they make cards. They got bags, backstrappers, things like that are in these bags. So, but those are just little things that happen for every holiday, for example. And if you just, it's almost like a Hallmark store here. If you wanted to go get a card for Mother's Day, or if your mom's birthday, you could probably go find one somewhere in the office. But those are just little things that are trying to make it easy to function and, make it easier to come into the office, get things done. And those little things that you don't think about, well, for example, haircuts. We have a barber that comes in once a month now, or once every 3 weeks, to cut hair in the office, so you don't have to leave for that. Oil change, entire rotation happens in our parking lots in all of our companies. Massage, we have a massage therapist that comes in. We have somebody that does facials that comes in once every month. So there's just all these little things, like I said, that are just life things that happen. You just don't want to go do. So.
Yeah. But that you need to do, and you're trying to figure out how to do them, all the while continuing your day-to-day at work. Well, if you're able to marry the two, then it's even more convenient. Let's talk about a lot of the complaints when we are doing for example, a employee engagement survey exercise with a client. I would say in the top 3, we always find communication. What are some of the ways that you facilitate that flow of communication within your organization? What are some of the ways that you communicate top down, bottom up, peer to peer? How are we facilitating those?
Oh, it's a good question. A lot of it happens organically, and that's one of the reasons I've been a big proponent of being back in the office. We still have a pretty flexible work schedule, but we're certainly not remote by any stretch. And that's just because of that cultural piece of you. In order to have the culture, you kind of got to be in the office and be around those people and see those people in the hallway and talk to them. There are all kinds of conversations that are happening that wouldn't happen if they weren't with each other. So that's a piece of it. We spend a lot of time, at least as an executive team, we spend a lot of time managing what our meeting schedule looks like, with that goal of creating meetings that are purposeful and needed, but aren't overkill. So you're not sitting in a meeting all day talking about another meeting that's got to happen, which I think a lot of companies get tied into. I will say this, and I don't know if this is good or bad. It's worked out for us. Our communication flow is somewhat haphazard in terms of who speaks to who in the communication flow chain. Yes, we have a hierarchy, and yes, we have hiring managers. I kind of screwed that up because I go to everybody and tell them that they can come directly to me if they have an issue. And I don't care how big or small it is. I don't care if it's them wanting to strive in their job. I don't care if it's something personal. I don't care if it's something about whatever it is. So a lot of times you will see people literally leapfrog the hierarchy and just come to me and want to talk, which is fine. So
Yeah.
I kind of upset the apple cart there. So
And I think that it should be that way, right? To have that, there's no, this, you must follow, you can't speak to a certain level, that
right,
you're contributing again to that hierarchy that will lead to people getting demotivated. Ultimately, they'll feel like they can't really, because if they get one person in that hierarchy who isn't a real active listener or isn't really great at finding them the resources they need, they'll stay stuck there.
right.
And nobody's going to know about it, right?
That's
So
right.
I know we are almost at time here, but I wanted to hear a bit more about. I heard you started a foundation. I'm wondering if you'd want to share with our audience what this foundation is about.
Sure. No, I no, wasn't ready for that one, but I love talking about it. So yeah, the Garrett Family Foundation, and my wife and I have spent a lot of donating to charities and other organizations. And we finally just got to the point where we were kind of like, well, we've got all these requests coming in. We don't have a lot of time to identify exactly which ones are the best requests. It maybe our real passion is just helping people that have immediate needs. So the foundation was a way to focus our charitable giving and to help us to be really focused on what we're giving to. And we hired a staff to run that foundation. And the ultimate goal is to provide immediate help to families in need. And a lot of cases that we're seeing, for example, a bad diagnosis. Somebody has cancer. Somebody has a really bad diagnosis that's life changing, and it throws them off, and they need help paying bills. Somebody's in a car accident and there's a life-changing piece to that. Maybe they're injured. We can come in and within 48 hours provide immediate relief, take care of mortgage bills, take care of electric bills, take care of food, take care of whatever it is. In some cases, we've gone in and remodeled homes, provide wheelchair access ramps, grab bars in the showers, things like that, taking out carpet and putting in hardwood floors when you've had somebody that's had a leg injury. Or an amputee. So anyway, that was our passion, and we just now have streamlined and focused that passion with the Garrett Family Foundation. And my wife's highly involved, and so she's loving that. We had a team member, Matt Griffin, who was a dear friend of mine that lost a battle with cancer a little over a year ago, and I think of him. He's kind of one of the key architects of our culture. I had this vision, and he really ran with it and put really put some of these things in place. And his wife has now stepped up, and she's running the foundation for us. So it's a great way to have a little piece of Matt still with the company and running the foundation. That's been a lot of fun. But there are a lot. I mean, that's a really exciting chapter of what we're trying to accomplish. And I always say that our goal is to lift people up. But I mean, I've been blessed beyond belief, and I don't think I deserve it. But at the same time, it's incumbent upon me to step up and take care of people that are in need. And
Pay it forward.
it's been pay it forward, absolutely. And it's just been a great blessing. So
amazing. I agree. We could talk for hours and hours on all of the different things that you're doing, the stuff that's not so big as a ski trip for all staff, but that will really be big in terms of the little things will make the difference in their day-to-day experience at work, and ensuring that you're taking the time to measure, assess, and really optimize that day-to-day employee journey is how you will attract and keep that high-performing talent.
I'll end with this. I think this is important. I didn't get to this during the conversation, but yes, you find the talent, right? And we talked about how to do that and what we're looking for. You have to give them a job function. You have to give them the goal, right? But you also have to let them perform. And I think that's another key piece of this is you don't hire somebody to micromanage them. You're not hiring somebody from the neck down. You don't need to just hands. You're hiring from the neck up. Let them go do their job. Let them perform. Give them the praise they deserve when they do perform, and let them grow independently. And just keep steering them in the right direction as you see fit. But the key of not micromanaging is once again another one of those kind of the piece of the secret sauce. You've got to hire people and trust them and empower them to do their job, but not do it for them.
So. Absolutely, and give them the tools they need to be able to do their jobs. Right, that's your role there is
that's
to
right.
make sure that you're keeping an eye on what other supports, which other tools might they need that will fuel that growth and that development even more. All gold, really. Is thank you so much for coming on this show. If there was one last thing that you wanted to, one nugget of wisdom that you wanted to leave with our audience, what would that be?
Well, I think it would be, if you're not focused on culture and you're not focused on the employees that you're hiring at a very intimate level. I don't care what your base knowledge is of the product you're selling or the widget you're selling or what company you're running. You're not going to be happy with the results at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. I think that for me, like I said, I've got people that most CEOs are probably not going down to the level of that hierarchy to talk to. And I'm talking to them directly because I think it's my most important job. Because if all levels of the company are not functioning and doing what they have to do, then I've got a much bigger problem than whether or not we hit a sales goal or something else. So
absolutely. So focus and take the time to get to know them.
Focus on every person.
Absolutely. If people want to continue the conversation, they want to connect with you, where's the best platform to do that?
Probably LinkedIn would probably be the fastest.
We'll have all of those, all of your socials linked in our LinkedIn. We'll have it in the show notes. So please take the time to follow this inspirational journey, especially in light of some of the beautiful things that you alluded to are coming up within some of the growth that you're hoping to achieve in the upcoming months. I think it's a company that is definitely worth a follow and definitely worth staying tuned in to see where they go, because I believe they are on to great things. Listeners, as I say in every episode, I hope you've picked up one thing, one little action that you can do based on what you've heard today and some of the very specific tips, tricks, strategies that you can implement to start to improve on your own workplace culture, and go do that. Thanks for joining us for yet another enriching conversation. To hear more about today's guest, make sure to check out the links in the description of the episode. Liked what you heard? Make sure to like and share this on all your socials. Want to continue the conversation? Head on over to our social media platforms to keep it going. Ready to find out how your workplace culture measures up? Then make sure to check out our website at www.bepeoplepowered.com. That's www.bepeoplepowered.com to take our free Happiness Factor culture check. And then sign up for our also free People Powered portal to start building your very own culture transformation action plan. Finally, make sure to subscribe to our show to make sure you don't miss another valuable episode.